14. The male-female procreation of the earth. 20 January 1847. From this procreation, all mineral beings, as well as the plants and the animal world, take their material origin. The earth, considered as man and woman in one, begets here and also gives birth in the most manifold ways, namely in such a way that on the one hand it brings, as it were, living young to the outside world. Then again, like the birds, it lays eggs, and again, like the plants, it gives birth to seeds. And for minerals, it produces certain flowers, in which lies the power to draw to itself everything that is similar to them, and as such to expand in wide circles. This is the fourfold procreation of the earth under both forms in one. Someone would of course ask here, if the earth does all this, why then the reproductive power in the plant and animal world? And why must the plant, however it is formed, bring forth the peculiar seed for its reproduction? Why the bird the egg, and why the animal its kind, and why amphibians their mushy roe, which are actually also eggs? The answer to this question is, of course, not as simple as one would like to think, but nevertheless, for the one who can only look a little deeper, it is already present in the whole of nature in a completely pronounced way. It is said, right at the beginning in the course of this article, that the earth is man and woman at the same time. As woman, she does not beget, but only takes up the begotten and gives birth to it. As man, however, he merely begets and does not give birth to it. But the begotten kind and species must first be matured and born into which it was begotten by the earth as a man being. To see this more clearly, let us first consider a tree in interaction with the body of the earth. An only reasonably thorough insight into this relationship will certainly show the matter as clear as day. Let us assume that the seed must obviously have been there before the tree on which it then reproduces, which is a correct assumption, because a seed can be produced more easily in the earth than a whole, fully grown tree. One can also put the light seed everywhere, and a small force will be required to disperse the light seeds of often largest trees to all four corners of the world. And if light winds blow, carrying these light seeds, not even a mosquito will be offended by this act, let alone a larger animal or even a human being. How difficult and with what use of force would an operation be, and with what danger besides, with already perfectly grown trees? What would people say if suddenly such a large oak forest, brought about by mighty hurricanes, settled down over their heads and put its roots into the earth? And for such a forest, healthy acorns can be brought on a single wagon, can then be quietly put into the earth, about which certainly no man will lose his head, So after a time, the acorns will slowly begin to rise, very tender shoots above the ground. Who has ever been hurt? Who has gone through a forest? If an extremely light fir seed fluttered down on his hat. But what kind of face would a person make if, instead of such a light seed, a perfectly grown giant fir tree fluttered down in front of his nose? Already from these few examples, it is easy to see for every reasonable person that the seed must be there before the tree. With animals, of course, the case is reversed. There, the bird had to be before the egg, because the animal's warmth already belongs to the hatching of the egg. But all the same, the bird existed immediately as a bird. But in this first procreation period, also the earth laid the first egg, and the earth was thus the first general bird. Once the first bird was born, it laid the egg, which was slightly differently equipped than the first, and gave birth to a second bird similar to it. One can therefore also assume with the bird, as also with the amphibians, the first egg as the seed, and there again the seed was before the animal that came out of it. Only if one finds a substantial difference between the quality of the earth's egg and the bird's egg, then the bird was certainly before the egg which it laid, and through the same again brought forth its kind. But it was not so with the seed of the plant. It was already born from the earth as the plant brings it back. So it is also the case with all other animals. Every species was first born from the earth already as a mammal, and received the ability to reproduce again by its own procreative capacity. We have taken a tree as an illustrative example to explain the begetting and birthing power of the earth. This explanation had to precede the present consideration above, without which the matter would not have become quite clear. But now, since we have made such a consideration, it becomes clear to you all at once how on the one hand the earth begets as a man, and on the other hand gives birth again as a woman, and how it behaves to our tree mentioned as an example sometimes as a woman and sometimes as a man. Let us assume that a seed which has ripened on the tree is placed in the earth. Then the earth behaves like a woman when it receives, and the received ripens and sprouts by its own power. But when the tree stands there, it takes on the female character in relation to the earth, and the earth appears as a man in relation to the tree, and begets new seed in the tree for its fertilization. From this example, the masculine and feminine activities of the earth would be already partly clear, and it would follow from this that the earth, in order to accomplish that, must necessarily unite the two natures in itself. But in this example, the earth and the tree interact. This is not enough. But we must also see this interaction in the earth itself. But how will we achieve this? That will not be so difficult. You know that the earth has a south and a north pole. These two poles always remain what they are with regard to the main effect of the earth, namely, the one the south pole and the other the north pole, or the one negative and the other positive, or the one attractive and the other repulsive, which then has the consequence that two such unequal polarities can never get along very well next to each other, because the one pole is the giver and the other the receiver. With this pole relationship, this interaction already strongly appears. Originally, or in the outlet, the positive north pole is the receiver, because it absorbs all the nourishment for the earth body. And the south pole in its external outlet is the one which absorbs nothing from the outside, but only puts everything behind. But in the interior, the north pole is the giver towards the south pole, and the south pole is the receiver. Behold, there is already something emerging. How the earth's being appears inwardly through its polar action, alternately in its two polarities, partly male and partly female. Even more conspicuous is this reciprocal, always changing polar effect by the alternation of summer and winter. Since half a year on the northern half of the earth is winter, while at the same time on the southern half summer prevails, and thus in the next half year reversed, which thus behaves and should also be understood as the winter is the male part and the summer the female part. The winter begets in the female summer, and this then gives birth to what the winter has begotten. Therefore, in the winter time, one half of the earth is male, while the other is completely female. And there also, the otherwise female south pole appears male in relation to the north pole, which has become female, and therefore also reversed. But there is always the noticeable difference that the fruits of the southern half of the earth are sweeter, softer, and fuller, but not as strong as those of the north. Because in the southern part, the feminine precedes the masculine, while in the northern part, the masculine is more distinguished from the feminine. And this could be called etymologically so. In the north, the earth is a man-woman, and in the south, it is a woman-man. From this representation, the dual nature of the earth is certainly already quite clearly evident. To the perfect view, however, it is still necessary that one knows that the earth changes its nature through the day and through the night. The night is always female, and the day male. What the day has begotten, the night gives birth to again in its dark womb. According to this, every seed is begotten and fertilized by the earth, as a male being, and is matured and born by the same earth as a female being. That the earth really produces seeds for all kinds of plants and animals can be deducted from many phenomena on the earth's surface. To these phenomena belong the original forestation of the mountains, like the moss and grass overgrowth of some former desolate steppes, on which nothing has grown for a millennium. Moulds and sponges have not yet another seed. Then to the phenomena explaining this thing belong those, if already somewhat more rarely, but on the whole nevertheless still frequently enough occurring kind, where it rained cereals and all kinds of grains, and especially does this matter explain the not rarely occurring fish, snake, and toad rains, and still other such phenomenon, of which no so-called natural scientist can say, if he has only a grain of common sense, that some whirlwind has picked them up from the earth and then hurled them down again. Because there, he would have to be able to prove somehow that on the earth such a place is found on which such beings have existed in not seldom a trillion-fold number. And if he would also be able to do this, then he would do nothing less than to prove just the peculiar procreative power of the earth all the more conspicuously. How just the earth can bring forth such things from itself. But how such phenomena actually happen, we will have a deeper look at next.